seats of power because we are kings and our words matter. You cannot be childlike Christians. You cannot be depending on other people's faith and riding on other people's tails and become heirs of the world. You need to grow in faith and know who you are and what has been given to you and what you can do. And only those kind of people can really inherit the earth.
I love you. I love you. I love you, Lord, today. Because you care for me in such a special way. And yes, I praise you, I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That is why my heart is filled with praise. Say it out. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you, Lord, today. Because you cared for me in such a special way. And yes, I praise you. I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That is why my heart is filled with praise. My heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. You paid the price for me, way back on Calvary. And yes, I praise you, I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That is why my heart is filled with praise. My heart and my mind. My heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. You paid the price for me, way back on Calvary. And yes, I praise you, I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled. Just one more time. My heart. Oh, my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. You paid the price for me, way back on Calvary. Yes, I praise you, I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled with praise.
A lot of people have not begun to realize who they are, what they have, and what they can do. They have no knowledge of that. They have not grown into that knowledge. Let's read Galatians chapter 4. See, right after chapter 3, chapter 3 last verse is, if ye be Christ's, then ye are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Now the same story continues. Chapter 4 doesn't mean that this whole subject has changed. No. Chapters are there, chapter divisions are there for our convenience. It's the same thing. He's continuing. Now I say that the heir, see, he's still talking about that only, that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all. What is he saying? Now a child, take a child, 3 years old child. In the old days, in their society, when Paul was writing this, they had slaves, like I said. And some of the rich people had slaves to take care of their children. So the job of the slave was to give the child a bath, dress the child up, take him to school, bring him back, and teach him some small stuff. He's no college professor, he's just a slave, but he can teach little stuff, and take care of the basic job of taking care of the child, play with the child, take care. So the child is always hanging around with the slave. And the child lives as if he's another slave. Sometimes he submits himself to the slave. The slave says, come here, the child goes. But he's the heir of the whole house. He's actually the master. He is the one that's going to own everything that the father has now. But because he's a child, the slave who works and takes care of the child treats him like someone under him or someone equal to him. So that's what it's saying. As long as an heir is a child. What does it mean? Why is a child like that? Why does a child sit down when the slave says sit down? When he says get up, he gets up. When he says eat, he eats. Why? Because the child does not know that he is the boss. He doesn't have the knowledge of the fact that all these assets are owned by him. This guy is nothing but a slave. He's got to obey me. He doesn't know any of that stuff. He's too small to know that. So the child does whatever the slave demands. Right? So as long as the heir is a child. See, a lot of Christians are heirs, but they're children. That's the point. They're heirs, but they're children. Children in what way? They're grown up. They're 50 years old, but they don't know who they are. They don't know what has been given to them. They don't know what they can do. They don't know anything about that they're heirs of the world. Would you have found out that you're heirs of the world if you didn't come here? I don't know how many years it'll take for you to find out that. Because it's a top secret, Nobody tells it, You never find out. Since they don't know who they are, since they don't know what has been given to them, since they don't know what they're owners of, because they don't know, they are just like a child, that little child that lives with a slave and does whatever he says. He is there equal to a slave. A lot of Christians are heirs but live like slaves. Heirs, but they're slaves of so many circumstances, so many situations. They live subjugated by all of these things that surround them. They are not able to exercise their authority. They are not able to speak up. They are not able to put their foot down. They are not able to take authority over anything because they don't know authority belongs to them. That's another thing I've never heard when I was growing up. I know nobody said believer's authority. That was a totally unheard of term. Nobody ever thought about the believer's authority and all of that. So there was no spiritual growth. I was growing by years. I was getting older and older and older. Spiritually, I was not growing. Spiritually, you grow when you come to know who you are. What has been given to you. What you possess in and through Jesus Christ. What you own. What are you the owner of? That I never found out. I was living year after year after year, going meeting after meeting, playing and singing the song, but not really growing in the knowledge of who I am, really. So I never knew who I am. So when I went to study, I was basically thinking, poor little Indian me. That's the attitude I had. All these other guys can do something great, but me, I'm a poor little Indian. What can I do, And also on top of that, we promoted, the church taught us to humble ourselves, consider ourselves nothing, don't aspire for anything greater. They just floored you to the floor, some of you are blessed you have not gone through that. And I tell you, I went through it and I got out from under it. Escaped. This is the greatest escape you've ever heard of. Every day, sometimes I just thank God for a few minutes for that great escape. I say, Lord, thank God. I thank you, Lord, for not leaving me there, because if you left me there, where would I be today? Yeah, they kept you down there. Somehow I got out. I began to hear things. I began to know who I am. I began to know that I have authority. I began to know that I can use the name of Jesus. I began to know that I am somebody, that I have something, that I can do something. I can do all things through Christ. I never knew those things, I began to find out. That is what spiritual growth is all about. But growth doesn't come very easy. Growth is always difficult. Have you ever tried weaning a child out of the mother's milk? Boy, the child will create a ruckus. People next door will be looking out and see whether you're torturing the kid or not, He'll be making such noise and screaming on top of his voice in the middle of the night. And he wants the mother. And the mother also gets very comfortable with this sometimes. She also thinks, no problem, it's all right, But if you keep on going like this, he'll be grown to 7, 8 years old. Still still you'll have to feed him with the mother's milk, You got to wean him at the appropriate time. But to wean him away from that mother's milk is a very difficult thing because the child rebels against it. He doesn't like it. Nobody likes anything new. Nobody likes any change. You don't like to go from one school to another. You don't like to go from a school to a college, to have new friends, to go to a new job and get, everything new is a challenge. So nobody likes it. Everybody creates a problem, you see. And the spiritual growth is also like that. We all like to just, in those days, I remember everything, they told us basically, you don't know nothing. You want to know the will of God? Call us up. We'll tell you. We'll pray for you. So that I remember, when you get married and stuff, the pastor only picked out the suit. You got to get the approval from the pastor for the bride's sari, And then he'll tell you how long the sleeve can be, and he's a barber, he's a tailor, he's everything. He's fulfilling every role, in the world, He's got the people absolutely in control. He thinks that they don't know nothing. That's the kind of situation, You guys don't know nothing. You tell us and we'll tell you what to do. You want to get married? We'll tell you who to marry. You want to get, you want to stitch your suit, we'll tell you what to do, how to stitch it and all that. And so we had some odd looking brides and bridegrooms in those days, Don't want to go into that. It's all pastors doing. And the people also get comfortable with that because they don't have to think, you see. You'll never get out of the will of God this way because he's a man of God. He'll tell you the will of God and you're not never in danger. Let him decide. We always said, you decide, pastor. So when the child is born, we told the pastor, you name the child. Whatever the pastor said, that's what, That's what we did. That's the way it went. And the pastors also liked it. They preferred us to be like that because they thought if we grew up, then we will not be under their control. So they made sure we never grew up beyond that stage. They said, don't do this, So they told us, who are you to go and pray for that sick person? Did I tell you? If they are sick, call the pastor. You don't go and pray. I've heard them tell that, They say, why do you pray for that demon possessed? That demon will beat you. Anything you want, you call the pastor. Only the pastor can do it. Nobody can touch, nobody can pray, nobody can heal others, nobody can set others free, nobody can do anything. But look at how Jesus himself worked it. Jesus wanted his disciples to be weaned away from this because he knew that as long as they're like children, they'll be like slaves. You got to grow up from that stage and become a master. See, when the child grows up, then the slave has a different attitude towards the master. He says, sir is coming. He's the sir that he was bathing before a few years ago, giving him bath and putting on his pants and all of that. Now he calls him sir because he can't fool him anymore because the guy knows who he is. You got to behave with respect. You got to come when he says come, go when he says go, and do whatever he says because the child now has grown up. He's become a son. He's become a grown-up person. In that same way, we need to spiritually grow up because as long as an heir is a child, there is no difference between a slave and the heir. He may own the whole world, but there's no difference between the slave and the child. Now, go to John chapter 16. I'll show you how Jesus tried to wean the disciples off of himself. Listen to this, chapter 16, John chapter 16, verse 22. And ye now therefore have sorrow. See, these people are sad now. The disciples are very sad. They're hanging their faces. What happened? Listen to this. But I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice, and your joy no man taketh from you. And in that day ye shall ask me nothing. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. You know why they were sorrowful? Because now Jesus is talking about how he's going to leave them and go. So they said, what? You're going to leave us and go? What do you mean? How are we to manage? Because all this time, if they had a headache, Jesus was there, healing them. If they had the stomach ache, Jesus was there. Jesus was right next to them. If they had a financial need, Jesus was there. If you had to feed 5,000, the miracle worker is there. Any problem, Jesus is there. So now he's saying, I'm going to leave now. So they're all hanging their face. It's weaning happening. They're all sorrowful. And Jesus has said, wait a minute. It's going to be actually better because hitherto you've asked nothing in my name. So far you've come to me and asked and I've given. But now there is a better method. You can go to the Father and ask in my name and receive, and your joy will be full. Whatever you ask my Father in my name, he will give to you. You are directly connected to God. You can go and ask God, the Father, and he'll give it to you. Now, which one is better? To have Jesus with you physically or to go directly to the Father? Just think about this. To have Jesus with you physically in your house, or to pray straight to the Father and get everything. Let me explain the scenario. If Jesus was staying here in physical form, in bodily form with us, then you better keep him very close because troubles come all the time and you need him. He must be accessible. So you keep him within reachable distance, so that when you have a problem, you can immediately call on him and have access to him and tell him what the problem is so that he can solve the problem. And then Jesus has to have a 24-hour line. See now where it goes to? He has to have a 24-hour line with some assistants attending the 24-hour calls, because people are in trouble and Jesus only can help, and they'll all be calling, and he better be ready night and day to answer them and get rid of their problems. So 24-hour line is necessary. And when you go out of town, you better make sure you take Jesus with you, because if you get stuck out somewhere and you're in problem, what are you going to do? Now Jesus will tell you, write to me, don't worry. But if you write to him, you don't know when the post office is going to get the letter to him, and when his letter is going to reach you. By the time your letter reaches him and he writes a letter back, praying for you and all of that, by the time the devil will finish you see. Because everything takes time. All over the world it's like that. So I don't think that's the best idea. If you ask me between the two, to choose between the two, I would rather go for going straight away to God, because with this Jesus, I got to make sure that I take him everywhere, keep him with me, and not let him go anywhere, All this problem is involved. But when Jesus said you can go to the Father in my name, ask him whatever you will, and he will give you whatever you ask in my name, and your joy will be full, that meant that I can be here, I can be in Madurai, I can be in Bombay or Delhi or anywhere. One day here, another day somewhere else. He is with me forever. He is accessible from all corners, and I can ask him and I can receive from him straight. I don't need anybody's help. I can do it. That's a better system. So he was all actually weaning them from a lower level of living to a higher level of living. The lower level of living is him being there physically with them and meeting all their needs and providing the spiritual power, casting out devils, healing the sick and all of that. The higher level is them praying in Jesus' name and asking God the Father, and God the Father doing whatever they ask. He is causing them to go from a lower level to a higher level. And look how they're doing. They're hanging their heads. After they heard all of that, they said, Jesus, I think you better be here. We understand all this stuff, but God, who has seen God? We have never seen him. At least we know you very well. 3.5 years, we've been very close friends. Why do you want to leave us now? They didn't want to quit, but he said, I'm going. you better get used to this new system, because if you're going to inherit everything that God has for you, you are not going to be able to do it unless you grow up out of this stage into the next stage. Grow up and be a son, not just be a child. Hello? Go on to another passage here. Mark chapter 9. Another story of weaning. Verse 14. See how important it is for us. What I'm talking about is how important for us to develop in faith. Where does faith begin? Faith begins when you come to know what God has given to you, what you own, what has been given to you, who you are, what you have, and what you can do. Faith, developing in faith like that is so important personally, because without doing that, you cannot even imagine being an heir of the world. To be an heir of the world is not an ordinary business. You got to grow up out of the childhood stage into an adult stage in spiritual life. Mark chapter 9, verse 14 onwards. When he came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes questioning with them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluting him. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them? What is the discussion going on? He said. And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which has a dumb spirit. And wherever he taketh him, he teareth him. That is, the dumb spirit takes him and tears him up. And he foameth and gnasheth with his teeth, and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples, and that they should cast him out, and they could not. He says, I took them to the disciples and told them, cast this devil out, and they could not. And he answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And then he casts out the devil, and so on. Now, when the man came and brought the boy to Jesus for healing, for deliverance, and said, I took them to your disciples and told them to cast the devil out, and they could not. Now, if Jesus was one of these ministers, he could have said, see, that's why you should not go to all these small fries, These guys are no good. They don't know how to cast out a devil. You should have come to the main office. Contact us, because we are really good at this. We can cast it out in a minute. Why did you go over there? Don't go to all these small guys. I'm the main man here. Bring the boy here. He could have said that, but he never said that. Instead, he turned around to the disciples and others and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be patient with you? How long shall I be with you? When are you going to start doing this on your own? Why couldn't you cast that out? Why can't you do it? Why can't you heal the sick? Why can't you cast the devil out? Why can't you do it? He didn't say, no, I only can do it, bring it to me. No. He said, you could have done it. Where is your faith? Why are you faithless? Why are you not growing up? Why are you not going from this level to the next level? You are expecting me to do everything, he says. Yeah? Mark chapter 4. Go to another example. Mark chapter 4. Remember a guy telling about pilot training, and the day came when he was about to do the solo flight, and the instructor got in with him, and they went up and the instructor reviewed the whole process and procedure and everything, and made sure that this guy knew everything and did everything right, and went for a round, and then came back, and the instructor said, just land it and take it over there, and I'll get out. And he landed and pulled up, and the instructor got out, and he said, now you take it. And the guy said, what? Because all this time he's been going with the instructor, now he's got to go to it alone. He said, I don't think I'm ready. The instructor said, I know you're ready. You don't know when you're ready, but I know when you're ready. The Holy Spirit is our instructor. He knows when we are ready to go solo. He knows when we are ready to do things, He wants us to grow up. Without growing up, you cannot be the heirs of the world, you see. You cannot be childlike Christians. You cannot be depending on other people's faith and riding on other people's tails and become heirs of the world. You need to grow in faith and know who you are and what has been given to you and what you can do, and only those people can really inherit the earth.
We have raised 1,000 voices just to lift your holy name, and we will raise thousands more to sing of your beauty in this place. Well, none can even fathom, no, not one define your word, as we marvel in your presence to the ends of the earth. We give you glory, lifting up our hands and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. Glory, lifting up our voice and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. We have written down before you, with our willing hearts we sing. In the greatness of your glory, it's so hard to even speak. There is nothing we can offer, no, nothing can repay. So we give you all our praises and lift our voice to sing. We give you glory, lifting up our hands and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. Glory, lifting up our voice and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your. We will give you glory, everybody. We give you glory, lifting up our hands and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. Glory, lifting up our voice and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart. Our hope is rests in you. Our hope is rests in you. Our faith has been renewed. We trust in your every word. Nothing else can even measure up to you. We give you glory, lifting up our hands and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. Glory, lifting up our voice and singing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart. Sing that out as loud as we can. Glory, sing up our hands and sing holy. You alone are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart. Glory, we're singing holy, for you are worthy. We just want to touch your heart, Lord, touch your heart.